menglong, the last song for my mother, ultimate sacrifice and regret. The night the song was born, the city was holding its breath. Rain stitched silver lines across the glass walls of the recording studio, blurring the skyline into a trembling watercolor. Inside, a single lamp burned over a grand piano, its light falling like a confession. Menglong sat there alone, fingers hovering above the keys, shoulders bowed, not in defeat, but in reverence. He wasn't chasing a hit. He wasn't thinking about charts or cameras or the fevered noise of fame. He was thinking about his mother, and about the words he had never said. This was not just a song. This was an apology shaped into melody. They would later call it the last song for my mother. Some would say it was a farewell. Others would whisper that it was a warning. But those who truly listened understood something deeper. It was the sound of a son standing at the edge of everything he had gained, realizing the cost of what he had lost. A childhood framed by quiet strength. Before the lights, before the scripts and stages, menglong was a boy who learned silence early. His mother, soft-spoken, iron-willed, worked long hours so he could chase a dream that didn't come with guarantees. She packed his lunches with notes folded so small they could fit into a pocket, notes that said nothing grand, only eat well, sleep early, call me when you can. He didn't always call. As his career rose, so did the distance. Airports replaced kitchens. Contracts replaced conversations. Applause drowned out the sound of a phone vibrating unanswered. And every time he promised himself tomorrow, the world demanded now. Fame has a way of making time feel infinite, until suddenly it isn't. The day the world went quiet. The call came on a morning that should have been ordinary. A missed call, then another, then a message with no punctuation, no softness, only urgency. Menglong read it once. Twice. His chest tightened as if the air itself had turned against him. By the time he reached the hospital, the corridors smelled of antiseptic and endings. Machines hummed like indifferent witnesses. His mother lay still, her hands folded, the lines of worry finally smoothed away. He took her hand, warm, but already slipping from the world he knew, and tried to speak. Nothing came out. In that moment, regret wasn't loud. It was devastatingly quiet. It sat in his throat like an unsung chorus, in his hands like a piano he no longer knew how to play. He stayed there until the sky darkened, whispering things that should have been said years earlier. Promises that no longer had a place to land. A studio turned sanctuary. Weeks later, when the world expected him to return, smiling, composed, invincible, menglong disappeared instead. No interviews. No updates. Just rumors drifting through fan forums like smoke. The truth was simpler and heavier. He had locked himself in a studio with a piano and a grief that refused to be managed. He played at first without structure. Broken chords, hesitant notes, music that wandered the way morning does, circling the same pain from different angles, hoping one would hurt less. He recorded nothing. He erased everything. He stopped counting the hours. Then one night it happened. A melody surfaced, not polished, not perfect, but honest. It rose slowly, like a memory unfolding. The left hand kept time like a heartbeat. The right hand trembled, reaching for something just beyond touch. When he opened his mouth, the words came without effort. I learned the world before I learned your face. I chased the light and left your shadow waiting. If love is measured by the time we gave, then tell me, mother, why am I still owing? He stopped, covered his face. Then he played again. Lyrics written in tears. Every line of the last song for my mother carried a weight that couldn't be faked. This wasn't a performance, it was a confession in real time. He sang about birthdays missed, about calls declined, about the arrogance of believing there would always be another chance. He sang about the way she stood in the crowd at his first showcase, clapping too hard, smiling too wide, as if trying to make up for all the seats she wouldn't occupy in the future. The chorus didn't explode. It didn't beg for attention. It simply opened its arms. If heaven has a listening room, play this where you are. I built my dreams from your sacrifices. Now hear what they cost my heart. When the final note faded, the room felt altered, as if something sacred had passed through it. Menglong sat in the silence, hands resting on the keys, eyes closed. He didn't cry. He had already done all of that. What remained was resolve. The choice no one expected. Releasing the song would mean exposure, not just of grief, but of guilt. It would invite speculation, judgment, and the ruthless hunger of an industry that feeds on vulnerability. Managers advised caution. Friends urged him to wait. He shook his head. "This one isn't for them," he said softly. "It's for her." When the song dropped without announcement, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Fans listened in stunned quiet. Comment sections filled not with hype, but with confessions, people calling their mothers, apologizing, crying. Critics struggled to label it. It wasn't commercial. It wasn't calculated. It was human. And then Menglong did something that stunned everyone. He stepped back. He canceled appearances. He declined endorsements. He redirected royalties to foundations supporting caregivers and families torn apart by distance and duty. The industry buzzed with disbelief. Sacrifice was supposed to be symbolic, not real. But he had learned, too late, the price of postponement. Regret as a teacher. In interviews months later, when he finally spoke, Menglong didn't dramatize his pain. He spoke plainly, almost gently. "I thought success was something I could bring home," he said. "I didn't realize home was what I was leaving behind." He acknowledged his mistakes without excuses. He didn't frame himself as a victim of circumstance. He framed himself as a son who had learned the hardest lesson the slowest way possible. "Regret," he said, "is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to wake you up." A song that refuses to fade. The last song for my mother continues to travel where Menglong cannot, into headphones on late-night buses, into kitchens where mothers hum along while cooking, into the quiet spaces where people finally say what they've been postponing. It has no choreography, no spectacle, just a piano, a voice, and the echo of love delayed but not denied. Some say the song changed him. Others say it revealed who he always was beneath the noise. Perhaps both are true. What is certain is this. In a world obsessed with gaining more, Menglong chose to give something back, even when it cost him everything he thought he needed to be complete. The ultimate sacrifice. Sacrifice is often romanticized, painted as a dramatic gesture made in a single, shining moment. But the real kind is quieter. It's choosing absence over applause. It's letting go of momentum to honor memory. It's understanding that some debts can't be repaid, only acknowledged. Menglong's ultimate sacrifice was not stepping away from fame. It was facing himself without distraction. It was admitting that love, unattended, can turn into loss. And his regret, etched into every note of that final song, became a bridge between what was and what could still be saved. In that imagined room, the rain still falls. The city still hums. And somewhere beyond the reach of sound, a mother listens, not to the mistakes, but to the love that finally found its voice. Because even when it comes late, love, sung honestly, has a way of lasting forever. Expanded. The night the song was born. The clock on the studio wall blinked 2:47 a.m., red numbers pulsing like a warning. Outside, the rain had grown heavier, drumming against the windows as if the sky itself was impatient for an answer. Inside, Menglong hadn't moved for hours. His jacket lay forgotten on the floor. His phone face down, silent, might as well have belonged to someone else. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the piano keys like they were a language he once knew fluently and had somehow forgotten. Each key felt heavier than usual, weighted with years. Years of absence. Years of later. Years of promises postponed until they hardened into regret. He pressed a single note. It rang too loudly in the quiet room. He pulled his hand back, breath catching. For a moment, the studio dissolved, replaced by an older memory, his mother standing by a window at dawn, tying her hair back before leaving for work. The room smelled of rice porridge. She had turned to him, smiling softly, saying nothing, because nothing needed to be said. Back then, silence was comfort. Now, it was unbearable. When memories refused to stay quiet. Menglong stood abruptly, pacing the studio. The walls were covered with acoustic panels, but tonight they felt useless. His thoughts were louder than any echo. Every step stirred another memory. A missed call during rehearsal, a short reply typed in a rush, a visit postponed because the schedule is crazy right now. Crazy. That was the word he had used. He stopped pacing and laughed once, sharp, humorless. Fame had taught him how to perform emotions perfectly on cue, but it had not prepared him for this raw, unfiltered ache. There was no director here to shout cut. No retake for regret. He returned to the piano, slower this time, like someone approaching a fragile thing. His fingers found a progression, simple, almost childlike. The kind of melody that didn't demand attention but earned it. The notes fell gently, like footsteps in an empty house. With every chord, another image surfaced. His mother in the audience, clapping before anyone else. His mother calling after midnight just to ask if he had eaten. His mother saying, "Don't worry about me," while worrying anyway. His throat tightened. The first words spill out. He hadn't planned lyrics. He didn't want them to feel written. He wanted them to feel unavoidable. His voice came out low, rough around the edges. I said I'd come home when the lights went down, but the lights kept chasing me. The line broke halfway through. He stopped, palms flat on the keys, shoulders shaking. For a long moment, he simply breathed, forehead resting against the cool wood of the piano. Then he continued. This time he didn't stop. The words spilled like water from a cracked dam, imperfect, honest, irreversible. He sang about how success taught him speed but not direction. About how he learned to face crowds of thousands but avoided the quiet question in his mother's eyes. When will you rest? The melody grew slightly stronger, not louder, stronger. Like a heart-finding rhythm after panic. A studio turned confessional. Hours passed unnoticed. Dawn crept in through the high windows, tinting the room pale blue. Menglong's voice had softened, worn thin by repetition, but he kept going. Each take stripped away something unnecessary. Each verse brought him closer to the truth he had been circling for years. At one point, he stopped recording altogether. He played just for himself. No microphone. No red light. Just a sun, and a song meant for one listener who could no longer answer back. He imagined his mother sitting beside him, hands folded neatly, listening without interruption. He imagined her gentle disapproval at his hunched posture, her familiar words, "Sit up straight." The thought made his chest ache and warm at the same time. "If you're listening," he whispered into the empty room, "this is everything I didn't say." The moment of realization. When the final chord faded, Menglong didn't rush to fill the silence. He let it stretch, let it settle. The rain outside had slowed to a drizzle, as if even the storm had exhausted itself. He looked around the studio, at the polished equipment, the expensive instruments, the symbols of a life built on relentless forward motion. And for the first time, none of it impressed him. What mattered was already behind him. That realization didn't break him. It steadied him. He understood then that this song was not meant to fix the past. Nothing could. It was meant to remember it, to preserve the love that had been overshadowed, not erased. He saved the file with a simple name. No drama. No metaphor. For Mom. The weight of what comes next. As morning arrived fully, Menglong finally checked his phone. Dozens of missed messages lit up the screen. The world was still waiting for him, impatient and loud. He set the phone down again. Not yet. He knew releasing the song would open a door he could never close. People would analyze every lyric, speculate about every pause. But he also knew something deeper. If he didn't share it, the regret would stay locked inside him, growing heavier with time. He stood, stretching stiff muscles, and looked once more at the piano. "This is the last one," he said quietly, not to the song, but to the version of himself who always ran ahead. Outside, the clouds began to break. And somewhere between night and morning, between guilt and forgiveness, The last song for my mother was no longer just music. It was a promise, born too late, perhaps, but sung with everything he had left.